move through the pain, and we transition. Today I have a special guest with me, and I'm so happy she's here. I call her my friend, my childhood friend. I've always been amazed by her growth, her transitions, and how she's never given up no matter what. So today, I welcome Kim Pauldon.
Thank you.
Kimberly Pauldon.
Kimberly, only when I'm in trouble.
Only
so
when you're in trouble.
fine.
So Kim Pauldon.
Kim Pauldon.
So the reason I decided that I wanted to interview you, and I've shared it with other people, how proud I am of you from all the obstacles that came in your way. You never gave up. So even when I'm in my darkest moments, and sometimes when I feel like throwing in the towel, I do reflect back to all you've been through. And never once have I heard you say, I can't do this no more. You kept pushing through. So it inspires me. And I want you to share a little bit about your background first so that they can see where you started and where it transitioned to where we are now in your beautiful home. But we'll tell them how you start, how this became you now. So give them a little bit of background about your schooling, about your family, and then we'll move forward.
Okay, so this is a real 360 because, well, is it a 360 or is it a 720? Because I say that because I was raised in Teaneck, New Jersey.
Okay.
Right? In the 7th grade, moved to Tracy Towers where I met you.
Okay. 7th grade.
7th
We're
grade.
aging ourselves a little.
Right?
A little.
A little.
Okay.
Fast forward 40 plus years of me living in the Bronx, now back to Jersey.
And there you go.
There I
It's
go.
a cycle.
Right.
Tell me about, so when I met you in Tracy Towers, at the time I know you lived with your dad.
I lived with my
So
dad.
give me some of the background as to when you moved to Tracy Towers, and then when you transitioned out of Tracy Towers and lived on your own, and a little bit about your schooling. We went to high school together as well. Kennedy High School.
Kennedy.
Okay.
Go Knights. Right.
Okay.
So how I moved to Tracy Towers from Teaneck originally is that my parents divorced.
Okay.
And my mom bought a new house down in South Jersey.
Okay.
And neither my brother John, my sister Joyce, or I wanted to live in South Jersey.
Okay.
Right? So me being a daddy's girl and the youngest, I went to live with my dad first.
Okay.
And that's how
Was he already in Tracy Towers?
he moved there at the divorce.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's where he landed.
So no, and this is new to me too, because I thought you moved in with him.
No, he was
Like
there.
you moved to get. See, I'm learning too. So
Yeah,
okay.
that's why it was a 1-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
So my dad had moved, from the house. He moved there by himself, just him. And then I came, and then eventually my sister came, and then my brother came, because nobody wanted to live in South Jersey. There was nobody
No
there.
offense to my South Jersey people.
No offense to South Jersey.
But it wasn't popping down there.
It wasn't popping. And the neighborhood was not accepting of my mom.
Okay. Okay.
Because she was, moved into a Caucasian neighborhood. In Teaneck, here in Teaneck, is segregated. Teaneck is divided by the highway and actual train tracks. So it's like, what side of the train tracks
What side of the tracks do you live on? We doing
That's
that again.
real.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you lived on this side of the train tracks and this side of the highway, that was the black
Okay.
square.
So everybody that I know said Teaneck, that's where they live.
That's where they live.
Okay.
Unless they had a lot more money. And a few was sprinkled on the other side, not many.
Okay.
On the other side, that's where all the doctors from the hospital and everything live.
Okay.
Right?
Now I know.
Right. So, I'm part of the busing era.
Okay.
In Teaneck, the schools were segregated like the neighborhood.
What year are we talking?
We're talking in the 70s.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, almost all the black children, there's only 2 junior high schools and 1 high school in Teaneck. All the kids go to 1 high school. Then they're split up between the 2 middle schools and then several other elementary schools. So all the elementary schools were extremely segregated because if you lived over here, that's where your elementary school was.
Okay.
Right? So we got bused where we had to start going like to the other side of Teaneck, some people, and then some of the people from the other side of Teaneck had to come to our side. And that's how that went. So then when my mom was like moving, and you get used to that level of racism, right? I had a racist teacher in 5th grade who was very aggressive towards me. My mother had to actually come in. But going to South Jersey was another level.
So you went from what you thought was not acceptable to in your face unacceptable.
On the first night, my mom bought a Cadillac, brand new Cadillac. She didn't put it in her garage on the first night. She came out the next day. They had keyed that car up so bad. She had to take it back and have it repainted.
And you was living with her then?
Oh no, I never lived there.
You never went to South Jersey?
I went to that's when I went to
your dad.
Yeah, when it was aware that she was purchasing and moving, I was like, I'm not want to go there.
Okay, and so as you came into Tracy Towers, and you're now with your dad, and at that point it was Kennedy. You started in Kennedy, or you did?
I started at John Peter Tatar Junior High School with Sabrina.
Tatar?
Yeah, I went to
143.
Tatar. Yeah, 143.
Okay. I'm like, what is Tatar? 143.
I went to 143. That's where Sabrina and I met. I don't know if we met in the building. I think we met in class. And then I found out she lived in the building. I'm not sure about that. I have to check. I have to ask her. But yeah, so I went to junior high school there. And then high school.
Right, okay, so you all were in 143. I'm slightly older than them. Very slightly. That's another story for another day when I had to check them on the 51st Club. But we'll do that later. But I was in Kennedy, I was in high school already, and then the Tracy Towers posse came from 143 Junior High School, and they all came into high school. So that's when we all was together, mostly. We hung out in the building, but once high school happened is when we all started hanging a little bit more tight.
Right.
So now it's you, your sister Joyce, and your brother John with your dad.
Right. All in a 1-bedroom apartment.
And me squeezing in there coming to visit. I remember that.
Right.
So now transition from high school with your dad. What was your next step? When did you leave Tracy Towers? After high school, what did that look like for you?
So after high school, I went to I followed you to Virginia State University.
Trojans.
Go Trojans.
Go Trojans.
Right. And, I was on...
What you remember? VSU. I love it.
I still got a VSU picture over there. I pull it out.
Oh, and I got to give a shout out to my flag football girls. Gucci girls represented hard. So hi to all of you guys. And I'm actually in touch with a few of them through social media. So, and supportive as well. Skin Maven, Yolanda Sessom. So she has a married name now. So if I didn't say it, I'm sorry. But she's doing her own thing. And, I would love to sit down and chat with her as well. But so it's social media has allowed a lot of people to still stay connected. Yes. So from Kennedy to Virginia State. Okay.
So Virginia State, my tenure at Virginia State was short. It was short. And I made two lifelong friends there.
I know one.
Paula. And Constance. We called her Peaches. She passed away some years ago.
I don't remember her.
Yeah. Paula and I are still friends. We were texting not too long ago. We don't talk that often, but we just catch up. It's like we never, it's like we talk every week, even though it might not be. Okay. So I made two lifelong friends there, but had to go.
Okay. It's nice to see you. I'm going. And the pictures on the front lawn at Virginia State?
I have some. I should pull it out. Don't pull it out, okay?
Because those hairstyles was crazy.
Crazy. Like this.
No.
I'm one level here.
I'm not confirming any of that. So, Virginia State, and then you came back home?
I came home, and when I came home, my father got me a job at AT&T. Well, he got me an interview. I got my own job. Right. He got me the interview.
This is what we do.
Right. And I just started working,
Mhm.
and I started going to NYU after work. Like I would take like a class.
Well, let me go back for a second.
Okay.
What made you decide to leave Virginia State? Because some people may be watching like, okay, you go to college and then your tenure is short. Why?
Okay, so my grades were good.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was on the dean's list. Did you know that?
Well, I didn't because I know I wasn't on it.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I made the dean's list when I was at
But I'm
Virginia
not
State.
surprised. Knowing more of you and who you are, that's not a surprise. But I didn't know that then. No.
Yeah, I left because I was assaulted at Virginia State. That's why I never went back.
Really?
By somebody I knew from high school. Not a stranger.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And he was harassing me. He was harassing me to the point.
A student or a professional?
A student. He came with. He went to Kennedy with us.
I could start doing the math, so I'm gonna hold off a little bit.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So when I came home for Christmas, I never went back. You remember? I never went back to
No,
this.
I do. Wow.
I came home for Christmas and I was like, I'm not going back. And my father was like, what? I was like, I'm not going back there. He was like, so what are you gonna do with yourself? I was like, I'm gonna get a job and go to school here. And he was like, okay.
Wow, Kim. And so I paused because I didn't know. And not that that's something you have to share, but it's weird how, like you say, you don't know what storms people are going through.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but back like now we're more aware, and I guess it's because we're older.
Yeah.
You don't even think to ask that question. Why are you not coming back to school? It's just the person didn't come back, and everybody kind of moves in their own direction, and you stay friends. But you never think to say.
You assume it's because of your
Why?
grades were bad.
No, I didn't even assume that. I just thought maybe you didn't like it,
Right.
or that just wasn't for you. We have another friend in Tracy Towers who went, who
Yeah.
didn't stay,
Right.
and same thing. I don't know why she didn't come back, but I thought that's shocking to me right now, and then I feel bad. You know, it's a natural thing to feel
But
like
nobody knew.
right, but as
only
a friend,
Dee knew.
why wouldn't I ask? Why are you not coming back? And sometimes it's like we were younger,
We were
18,
young.
19, you don't know, and we're very self-absorbed.
Yeah.
But part of me feels bad that I didn't care enough to find out what was going on. But we were young.
Nobody knew.
Right. And
Because remember, I had, you remember Dee,
yeah.
right? Because remember, I had my own apartment off campus. Remember?
Now, when I was there, we both lived in Howard Hall.
Right. And then I got kicked out of Howard Hall for fighting. Remember, I had 2 fights.
We grew up in the Bronx, so not that Bronx girls like to fight, but we've had quite a few. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But then I had moved out too. I moved off campus as well, so I had a
Yeah.
house, and then you moved off too.
Right.
Okay.
You moved off the semester before me, and then I moved.
Right.
Right.
We wanted to be grown college girls in our own places. That
Right.
didn't work out so well, but anyway.
Right. And
I didn't get kicked out of the door. Just so
I
you know.
did.
Okay.
I don't fight.
Don't fight in college. Go and get your education and network amongst your sisters.
Exactly.
That's what we want you to know.
Exactly. So, yeah, I was living off campus, and you know, he came to my house and kicked in the door, basically. Like I had the chain on the door. Like I opened it up a little bit. I wasn't gonna open it at all.
Mhm.
I opened it up a little bit because he was like, "Oh, if you don't open the door, I'm gonna kick the door." You don't remember how much mouth I had back in the day?
No, not back in the day. Still, but go
Right.
ahead.
So I opened up the door with the little chain on it, thinking that this chain was like a Hercules chain.
I think all women think that chain keeps everybody out.
He kicked that chain
I've had a
into-
door kicked in once.
He kicked in that door so easy. You thought it was with a toothpick or something.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I have to go. So he was just making all kinds of threats against my life, and I was scared. And so I came home, and my father got me a job at AT&T, and I started working, and I went to NYU.
Mm-hmm.
and was taking classes, like one class a semester. So basically,
That's I'm going to take a class to keep the parents at bay. So
Right.
the parents is like, she's doing something. That's the undecided class.
right, because how it works in a Pauldon household with Eugene Pauldon, if you're not in school, you're working. If you're not working, you're doing something.
Right.
You can't just,
You're not just chilling.
and if you're in school, you're not getting no C grade. No, he wasn't about none of that. He was not. He did not play any of that, right? So, and but not only did he not play it, he would help you. He wasn't just like, oh, you're not doing. Like, I remember him sitting trying to teach me algebra. Was not good. I couldn't. I
can't see your dad like that because he was so quiet.
He's
He
very
was very laid back, very quiet, but very proud of you. Because I remember high school when we went out for your graduation.
Yeah, remember
and
that?
we went out to eat.
It was a whole bunch of. I had pictures of that.
And I thought I was fancy ordering egg drop soup, and when it came, I'm looking at him
Like, what is that?
I remember that, but he was so laid back. But you see one dimension of someone, and you don't know what else is there. So this is learning that he was like a stickler for education.
When it came to education, he did not play any games because he realized education is the key.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my father grew up very poor. His family.
Repeat that again.
He grew up very. Education is the key.
Okay.
Yes, he grew up very poor. Went to the army and became an engineer. You know, like he took his army grant and turned it and went to college when he came out and became an engineer. He was one of the first black engineering people in the engineering department at AT&T.
Wow.
And then ended up as a manager.
So he worked there. That's how he got you a job.
He worked there his whole life.
Guided you to a job.
Yep.
Okay.
After the army, he only worked at one place,
Mm-hmm.
AT&T. He retired from there.
Okay. When did you transition from? So you come home from college. You're here.
Right.
You're working at AT&T. Now, when did you transition from Tracy Towers onto your own?
Okay, so I came home. I'm working at AT&T, you know, going to school here and there. But, like, I want to hang out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 20-something now.
Mm-hmm.
I look good.
Not at his house, you're not.
Not, right?
I know.
Right.
I know where you think you're getting dressed going at this time of the night? And I'm like, at school, you know what time we left? This
Right.
ain't school. This is my house and the door's locked at a certain time. And where's the rest of your clothes?
Right.
I know.
So it was time to move. Plus, I wanted to have boys over. Men. But they were really boys, actually.
We thought that's a men thing then, right?
Right. So it was time for me to do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I moved to Brooklyn. It's in the apartment.
Glad you don't live in Brooklyn. Because I was tired of hearing this Brooklyn in the house. So.
Yeah.
No offense, Brooklyn, but I'm tired of hearing it.
Right. So I lived there for a few years. And then I met this boy. I ran into somebody from Kennedy. And we started dating.
Mm-hmm.
And then we like became serious.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, oh, he wanted me to move into the apartment with him.
I remember the name. Now that you're saying it, because I think we reconnected around that time. Because you used to tell me about him or call me and tell me.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
He used to lie all the time. Oh.
I think we used to say he lies so much we don't know if his name is Raul.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if I had never heard his mother call him that, I wouldn't be sure.
Okay.
Right?
I remember that. He was a compulsive liar.
He was a compulsive liar.
Okay.
So I couldn't take that very long.
Okay, so Raul's gone.
So Raul's gone, and I continued living there for the next quarter of a century.
Okay. Okay.
And there, while I was there, I got laid off from AT&T. What happened was in AT&T, you know, these departments, because it's so big, they can move a department from New York to Wisconsin.
Just pick up in.
Right. Be like, we're not doing that in New York anymore. If you still want that job, you're not fired, but you have to go do it in Wisconsin, which is what happened.
All right.
Right. So I'm there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had already been in school, thank goodness. So I was going to NYU as an accounting major.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at AT&T, I was a sales representative,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I had done enough schooling at this point by the time they changed where my job was that I decided not to go to Wyoming.
Okay.
I took my little severance package and I got a job as an accountant at this company.
Mm-hmm.
While I was working there, my father passed away. And
Khalik and Nasir.
Khalik and Nasir.
Okay.
Yes. And
so now
that,
you're in the Bronx. You're in a 1-bedroom.
Yeah, I'm in the Bronx.
You're having twins.
I'm having twins, and you know the pregnancy was rocky.
Mm-hmm.
The pregnancy was rocky for several reasons. I had to be on bed rest for most of it. And then also, he was a piece of shit. Okay. And he came and went when he decided he wanted to be responsible and did.
And I remember when you were home with them, and they were so tiny, and they were both in the same crib, and then there was still all this space. Because they were so tiny.
They were so tiny.
Yeah.
This is the night that they came home from the hospital. Right? Look how small they are. And I start back working, right? Oh, while I was out, because remember I had to be on bed rest.
Okay.
So I was out on bed rest for a long time, and then that coupled with maternity leave at the accounting firm, they needed to replace me.
Okay.
But they were such decent people. So because we were auditors, we did the books for all these other companies. They got me a job at one of the companies that we did the books for. Right. So I was there. I had started going back to work like a week, right? The next week, I'm getting off the train. It was on 23rd Street, right? I got off the train. I walked one block. I felt like I ran that block. By the time I got to my office, I was done. I was like, oh my God. I was like so tired. I could barely breathe. And that got progressively worse, right? And I eventually had to go to the hospital because I couldn't lay down without coughing. So I was sleeping. I spent 2 days sleeping, sitting up on the couch like this. So I go to the hospital and they were like, oh, did you eat some Chinese food or something, maybe allergic to, something in it? And I was like, they figure you live in the Bronx around here, you probably ate some Chinese food. They were right. They were right.
That was the diagnosis?
That was the diagnosis. So they gave me some cough syrup. And I took that cough syrup and that did not go away. So then I went back to the hospital, to Montefiore, can I say? They gave me a chest x-ray. They said, oh, you have pneumonia. Right? Something's in my eye. I'm like, oh my God, pneumonia. So they gave me some medicine, a Z-Pack, to like clear up the pneumonia. After 3 days, I felt like I was gonna die. So after they gave me the Z-Pack and I started really still feeling bad, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna go back to Montefiore. I've been there 2 times.
Right.
I don't feel better. So being that my children were born down on 16th Street at Beth Israel, I decided to go there. I was like, let me go down there and see what I get. I went there and they do the normal thing. They take your blood pressure and everything. And they were like, let me take your blood pressure again. And then it was like, oh, we want to do a EKG. I had never had an EKG before. I was like, what? So they did an EKG. The technician, and she goes out the room and she comes back in. And she's like, I have to do it again. She's like, how old are you? I was 30. I was 30 years old. My children were like 3 months old. They happened to be with their father one of the few times. Right?
We're going to say thank you for the few times.
Thank you for, yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone that day if I would have had to drag the kids with me. Right? So she does the EKG again. And she's like, I'll be right back. And she comes back and she says, you have children, right? I'm like, yeah, they were born here, which is probably why they know, because it probably showed up because they were born there at that hospital. But we weren't at the main hospital. We were at the offices at Union Square. Like, that's where all the doctors have their offices, right? So she was like, well, where are they? She was like, where are they now? And I said, they're with their father. And she's like, okay. And without any real, like, preparation, she tells me that she ordered an ambulance to take me to the main hospital to do a more extensive test because something is not right with my EKG. At this point, I'm not surprised because I felt like I was dying.
You felt like something was going on. You just didn't know what.
Not only did I feel like it, other New Yorkers could see it because for months I had a double stroller and no car. So anytime I had to go anywhere with Khalik and Asiya, I'm up the train steps with a double stroller. Men didn't help me. They'd be like, I want to, you know.
You're in the way.
I'm in the way.
And rushing, right?
And rushing. Now on this day, I'm by myself. I'm trying to go up the stairs at 14th Street in Union Square. Men were like, Miss, do you need help? Do you need some help? That's how bad I look. I don't even know how I got up those stairs. So when I walked in that office and she's taking EKGs and shit, I knew something was wrong. That's why I went. So when they sent me to the hospital, to the main hospital, one of the like when they put me in this room, it was like a dark room. It was like a room inside of a room. Like where they have the people that are on the other side of the glass and they're looking at you and saying shit to you. And so one of them, before they started, they asked me, you have children, right? And I said, yeah. And they said, where are they? And I'm like, they're in Brooklyn with their father. And they go, oh, okay. And I was like, she's like, oh no, because you know we have to run these tests, and I don't know if you need to call and like tell somebody you're gonna be longer. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, no, they're gonna be there, right? So okay, so they do whatever this testing is. Then the doctor comes in, and the doctor says, you have children, right? And I said, yes, I do. And he goes, where are they? And so I said to the doctor, I was like, do I need to have them here? Like, do I need to say goodbye to them? Because I felt like I was dying. I knew something was wrong. And he was like, no, you don't have to say goodbye to them. He was like, but let me explain to you what's happening. He was like, you're having a heart attack.
You were in the midst of a heart attack while they keep asking me this.
A heart attack is not like that.
I know, which is what most people believe.
You think, oh, I'm having a heart attack. Because that's what I thought.
Wait, okay, I didn't need you to make that because I'm going to start crying. But, so 30 years old.
I'm 30.
Twins, 3 months old, and you're being told in an ER by yourself during an EKG that you're in the midst of a heart attack.
Yes. And so I said,
what went through your mind right then?
I said, I'm telling you, I said to him, do I have time to get my children here to take a last picture so they have a picture to remember me? And he said, you don't need to get a picture because you're here now and we're going to help you. And so he had a needle in his hand and he injected something into my arm that made my arm feel like it was on fire.
Hot. Was it for dye?
No, it was some medicine. And he said, I'm giving this. He really told me what it was. I couldn't. There wasn't that kind of time. It was just like, no. He had it in his hand.
Right.
Yeah. And he injected it into my arm and he was like, you're going to be admitted here. He was like, wherever your children are, can they be there? And I said, well, how long do they have to be there? And he was like, you're going to be here for some time. And I ended up being in there for almost 3 weeks. I was in a tertiary. Do you know what a tertiary unit is?
That's how I'm hearing this one.
Me too. I had never heard of a tertiary. You know what it is? I was in a room at 30 years old with 2 other residents of the hospital, whatever you want to call them, patients, a nurse's station was in my room.
Which sounds like ICU.
Yes, it's the next level from ICU.
Okay.
It's called tertiary. So there was a crash cart in case any of us had a heart attack.
Can somebody
Right
Google
there.
tertiary so I can see the full meaning?
That means third. It's like the
Third.
like a third level.
Okay.
Because tertiary is like, first there's the emergency room.
Uh-huh.
That's primary,
Mhm.
right? Then there would be ICU,
Mhm.
which is you've been taken care
Intensive,
of.
right.
Right, so now you're in intensive care. That would be secondary. Then tertiary is third. That's like, there's a nurse.
Just touch and go.
Yeah,
Touch and go.
right.
Okay.
So I was there for like a few weeks, and they
Now,
were with,
while you're there,
Khalid and Nasir were with their father.
he's aware of it.
Yes.
Your mom.
My mother, everybody, yeah, but they were in South Carolina. My
Okay.
mother was in South Carolina. My sister was still here at that
But you
time.
reached out and everybody knows what's going on.
Everybody knew what's going on, yeah.
Okay.
So, but the kids were with their father, and then their father comes and tells me, I have a trip with my friends. I'm going on a trip, so you gotta come get the kids. I was like, what do you,
You're still in the hospital.
I was in the hospital.
And he knows you're in the hospital. And he knows why you're in the hospital.
Yes.
My brothers, my men, y'all have got to do better. You have got to do better. We're talking some odd years ago, but women, we have got to do better on who we're picking for our mates and our children's father, and people being so self-absorbed in I don't even know what that looks like. I can't imagine what that looks like or how that had to feel like.
It was
Because
insane.
it comes across not only insensitive, here is it you possibly could die, and he wants to know where his kids are going to go because he has to go away. Not thinking that they may be with you for the rest of your life.
Because he wants to go away.
Right. Wants to go away. We've got to do better.
Right. And you know what? My mother told me, my mother tried to tell me. She was like, I'm telling you. And I just thought she was being negative.
Do we ever listen to our mothers?
We don't.
Do our kids listen to us?
They don't.
They don't. And we unfortunately learn the hard way.
Yeah.
There's something about parents. They see stuff that we're not able to see.
Yeah.
And they deliver that message, whether we want to hear it or not. They deliver that message to us on what they see because they've been through it.
Yeah.
But we feel we got to walk that path ourselves.
I know. Because fools only learn from their own mistakes. A wise person learns from somebody else's.
And we've all been that fool.
Right.
And I don't know what you call those that never learn.
I don't know.
I don't know what we call that.
I don't know. But, so, he was dead ass. So I had to let the hospital know
Because
that.
while you're in crisis,
Yeah.
as mothers always do, you got to still now wonder about your kids. You can't just relinquish your responsibilities and say, let me just focus on getting better.
Right. I had nobody else to turn to. Nobody was like, oh, we'll take them. Right? So guess what? I had to let the doctors know that I was checking out. It was a big deal. They had people coming down from legal, like, well, you have to sign this AMA against medical advice. I was like, what? They're like, because you should not be leaving here. Right? So, but I did. Because what was I supposed to do?
Right. Because if he abandons, now who's going to step in and take your kids?
Yeah, social services.
Right. Okay. And these are the choices as women that we're faced with every single day for our children.
Right.
We call it sacrifice. I don't know what you call that because that's not even sacrifice. That's
Survival.
I don't know because you put your life at risk. And the bottom line is, if you didn't make it now, they needed you well.
I know.
And whatever that. But I say this too. You mentioned what was I going to do. Nobody said I'd help. At that time, I know I didn't know when you were in the hospital. As women and with our pride, we don't want to burden people.
Right.
We don't want to imposition people. Well, I know this person, but they got a family. I can't ask somebody to. We don't reach out in times of crisis when we absolutely should. Because if it's one thing I know, a man may not always be there. A man may not have your back. A sisterhood, it may not be what you want it to look like, but your sisterhood is going to hold you down until you can get it together.
Right.
And so, with your statement, nobody was stepping in. You got to retract it. I didn't reach out. You didn't I know I didn't know.
Right. No, that's true. What I meant was
I knew after.
I meant like my family didn't step in. My family knew it was in the
Yeah, but if you, and your family dynamic is your family dynamic that you've been knew how it was.
Yeah.
Right? So at some point, we have to reevaluate stuff, and not just for you. It was the same way you were putting them 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, you was willing to die for them,
Mm-hmm.
which would have left them without you. Thank God that wasn't the case.
Right.
But then you got to put your pride to the side and say, my family ain't stepping up. I have people.
Right.
Throw caution to the wind. People may say no, but you got to put that question out there. We've got to stop walking with such sense of pride.
Right.
That could end. Your pride could kill you, and then it leaves them in a bad place because of your pride. Their father's not there. Your family's not there. But you had friends that you knew would step up. There was Dee Dee.
Yeah.
There was Paula.
Yeah.
Anybody out there listening, and you in similar situations, when it comes down to sacrificing of children who didn't ask to be here, no matter how embarrassing it looks, take the embarrassment shot so you can get better and get back on your feet.
I think that is true, but at that point, I don't know if it was even a conscious decision, like
You
not
knew
to
they
reach
had
out. I just knew, like, because they were asking me the whole time I was there, they were trying to convince me to be put on the heart transplant list.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, you need to be.
Did you? And you had it eventually.
No.
You had heart surgery.
No. I didn't have any of that.
So
I
how
said,
did we heal?
but medicine. I've been taking these different medicines.
Do you currently take them?
Yeah.
You for the
Every
rest
day.
of your life?
Yeah, for the
You
rest
don't
of my
want
life.
medication?
I take like 5 different medicines every day.
And then you have to get checked up how frequently?
Yeah, I just had an echo. Oh, can I show you something?
Mm-hmm. And so now how often do you do this?
Well, I have to actually go in. Like, I went in for an actual echocardiogram a couple of weeks ago. You're supposed to go like every few months. It depends on how my statistics are going.
Okay.
Then the doctor would say, no, you have to come in and take an actual, like, one here.
There's different levels of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
because when they do it, they also test to see how well the blood is pumping. This doesn't tell you how well the blood is pumping out of your heart, but the one that this is an EKG. This is an EKG. I have to go get an echo where they can see the heart, they can see the blood, they can see what's happening.
Now you're on a path where you're monitoring your health. You're aware there's a problem.
Right.
And you're taking the steps you need to.
Right. I have my blood pressure.
Oh, so this is a full-time thing all the time.
Because my blood pressure can shoot very high, so I have to take.
So one of the things I want to cover too, because I want them to know, this is one of the reasons, so I'm learning a lot, but one of the main reasons I wanted to sit down and talk to you, like all of this as a single mom of twin boys and a heart attack. Can you speak briefly about, I know you had a fire?
Yes. So in 2003, and I wanted to go back to work because disability sucks.
Right.
You know, like, first, you don't barely have enough money to live.
Right.
You know? And so one day I leave out of the house to go to work. Colleague and I see were at the babysitter. They were 2003, so they were 4. They were like 3 or 4. And I came home that day, and everybody in the building was standing outside. And they were looking at me, and they were like shaking their heads. And I'm like, Colleague and I see is right here in the back of my car. So I'm like, why are they looking at me like that? So I'm like, what happened? And they're like, your apartment. I'm like, what about my apartment? And they're like, it was on fire. I was like, what? I was like, my apartment was on fire. They're like,
and nobody
yes.
had called you? But it must have just happened because everybody's still outside.
This is before cell phones. It's 2003.
Okay.
I mean, there were cell phones, but and I had a cell phone that I left home that day.
Okay.
Because this was before you needed it for everything.
No, but I'm just thinking your building's on fire, your apartment's on fire. The landlord would call you at your emergency contact, which would be your job.
No, because this was the difference. You remember, I had been home from disability for 5 years. I had just started going back to work.
What happens now that you have no home to go into?
We have what we're standing in. We didn't have a brush, a comb, a toothbrush.
What happened to you that day?
That day, I went to, where did I stay that day? I think I took them to their father's house. I think we stayed at their father's house. Like, look, my apartment was on fire. Okay, we have nothing.
I have to sleep.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember sleeping in one of his shirts. The kids had on each one of his shirts. We had nothing. I had to we clean our clothes by hand, you know. And that was in June. That was in June of 03. I didn't have apartment back until October. So that whole summer I spent at my sister. We went down south to my sister's house. My sister said we could stay there, and I stayed. Well, my mom said I could stay at her house for 2 days, living in a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom home with just her and her husband. Yeah. So I did. I stayed for 2 days, and then my sister, who had just got a divorce and had just got an apartment and was trying to figure her shit out,
said, "Come here."
Yeah, and I slept on the floor in her living room for the whole summer.
Wow. So, heart attack, twins, homeless, twins, displaced, and you say, so they fix your apartment, you move back to your apartment.
And guess what? On the way coming back up here, I had a horrific car accident. We were on the northbound side of 95. We ended up on the southbound side of 95. Over the guardrail, flipped over, slid, landed in the ditch on the southbound side of 95. Somehow I didn't hit any other cars, but the car was, if you looked inside, it looked regular.
But on the
outside it was a ball. So I got Khalik and Nasir and my sister, who was unconscious, out of the car before anybody got to us. This lady was running, this first lady who reached us was a lady, and she said she must have saw what I was doing. She was like, "How did you do that?" And I was like, "What?" She was like, "How did you get these people out of this car?" I don't even remember, Kim.
It was that adrenaline,
I just know,
flight, right?
I know in every movie I've ever seen, when a car flips, it blows up.
Right. So you're like, get out.
We wasn't blowing up in here. If we didn't already die, we wasn't going to die blowing up.
Right.
So I had got like all this glass and stuff. I don't know, you can't really tell. Like there was, because I was on my knees pulling everybody out of the sunroof apparently. That's how I got everybody out from the roof of the car.
Now, did y'all end up going to the hospital?
Yeah, we had to go to the hospital.
Right.
Joyce's foot went through the thing, so she had a cut. It almost cut her Achilles, but it didn't. I had no skin on this because my elbow was dragging out the car as the car was sliding along. I had no skin, and there was glass and stuff. There's still some glass in here. The boys didn't have one scratch on. Not a piece of glass, nothing. Like they weren't even in the car.
You gonna say amen to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know, that's why I say absolutely. Amen. Absolutely. For sure. It was a miracle. It was a miracle. There was glass all in my hand.
So now we say twins, heart attack, twins, fire, homeless, and a horrific car accident.
I was Job.
And you?
I was Job.
And you still standing?
I lost all my material possessions, and it was just Khalik and not seeing myself.
That's a lot. That's a lot, Kim.
That's a lot. So we hobbled back to New York. After all this, going to the emergency room, getting taken care of, get on a bus. We were on a bus like this, like come back to New York, right? Okay. So that was 2003, right? And then I ended up going back to school. Well, I was already kind of in school finishing my bachelor's, right? Because remember, I used to be taking one class a day, right? So I finished up that bachelor's, and by now, Khalik, my oldest twin, was diagnosed with autism.
Okay.
And they're telling me,
how old is he at this time?
2.5.
Okay.
They're telling me, he'll never do this. He'll never do that. He won't be able to do this. He won't be able to do that. And I'm thinking, yeah, he is. Yes, he will. He is. Right. And so I read all these books. Remember, I was an accountant, right? I read all these books. I'm like reading the books about autism, this and reading and writing and teaching people this and teaching people that. And I just read so many books, and I was like, you know what? In that life, having a disabled child.
So she has twins, and one was diagnosed.
They were both diagnosed with something. Nasir was diagnosed with just like a developmental delay because like he still doesn't talk. He wouldn't talk then, so they thought something was wrong with him. Right? He could talk. He just wouldn't.
He didn't talk. He was quiet. And where is he now?
He now is a software engineer for IBM.
And he did an internship and
Last year.
Relocated to North Carolina.
Yes.
Living on his own in his own place, doing amazing things, did amazing in college, and now an engineer software for IBM.
Yes.
Okay. Which is going to be also a follow-up story because I want you to go more in detail with both boys and the struggles with that. But so now you're back home.
So now I'm back home. Now I have a son who clearly will need assistance the rest of his life. I don't know how much at that point, but I know that there will be some. So, and I'm an accountant. I don't have time now. I have kids now. Well, I've been home on disability, right? Because I had that came from the birth, carrying the children. So I was home, and the good thing was that it was a blessing in disguise because being home on disability gave me the time to be able to go back to school.
Okay.
And become a speech. I earned a bachelor's degree in speech. Is this my bachelor's?
That's right.
Oh no, excuse me. This is my first bachelor's degree in accounting. In accounting.
What is your final degree in?
My final degree.
And I'm not going to say final. What is your latest degree in?
My latest degree is a master's in speech and language pathology.
And that's the field you're in now.
That is
a specialist.
Yes, I'm a specialist. So I went on to get a bachelor's degree in speech and audiology. I'm also can do I can do hearing tests and all that stuff. And then I continued on and got a master's in speech pathology and became a speech pathologist.
So I want you to look in this camera for me. And I want you to tell the women out there that are struggling, that think they can't make it, that they won't make it, that they don't have help. Send a message to somebody who may not be exactly in your shoes, but that's really struggling and they feel alone. We want you to know you are not alone.
Right.
But I want you to tell them a message of hope. What I need you to know is, from her friend, as a standpoint, as somebody, she has been my strength. I look at a woman who was a mother of twins, single mom, went through a heart attack, went through a fire, was homeless, displaced, and through it all, never, ever, ever gave up. Walked out of hospital against doctor's advice and still fought her way through from where she was, all those adversities, and came out on top with a master's degree and specializing. I want you to give them a message of hope. Because I want you, if you can see, we'll post the pictures on our site when this airs of just the fabulousness that we're sitting in now. And people always say you don't do it alone. She did it on her own with no help. She did it on her own, and she has twin boys that can look to her and say, if there's a strong black woman and there's a picture of it, here she is. So please give them a picture of hope.
Okay, well,
and we'll close out. I want to thank you for this, and we will follow up with another one because you have so much levels, and I can't thank you enough for being there for me.
Thank you. I want to thank you also. What I have to this camera, that one. What I would say is just don't give up. It's not easy. I got through what I got through, and I didn't breeze through it. I cried a lot. I ate a lot of Entenmann's coconut cake. They don't make it anymore. They couldn't keep up with with me, so for some reason. And you know what? I have to say that my mother is strong. It's weird because my mother has dementia now, but you just have to, you have you, and you have to do whatever it is you have to do. If it requires you going back to school, go back to school. Yeah, it's going to take 4 years. Guess what? If you don't go back to school now, 4 years from now, you need the same fucking place.
Right.
You just do what you have to do. That's all I know. I don't even know what I did. If I remember portioning out like chicken, like going to the store and getting a pack of chicken. Okay, there's 6 chicken wings in here. All right, I'm gonna give them 2 each, and I'll have 1 for lunch and 1 for lunch tomorrow. A grown, you know, like I just, whatever it was, I just did it. You just have to not give up. Giving up is not the answer. Because if you give up, what's going to happen? Nothing. Nothing happens. You have to be actively doing something to get something.
That's the message right there. That's the message. You have to actively be doing something to get something. Nothing is just going to come to you.
No.
You got to work for whatever you want, because it's not going to be given to you. And while you're actively doing something, curveballs will continue to fly. Life doesn't stop.
It never stops.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
And I'm so proud of you. I really am. And this is why I wanted to sit down and talk to you. Friend Appreciation Day. Anytime I can pump you up, I'm always. And people are like, don't you date her? Why are you always talking about her? Because I, like, from what I know, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning.